from the CSI Congress, which is a top leader Congress and in congenital and structural heart disease. We also have here Dr. Zhao Guanzi from Fuwai Hospital, who is gonna show us a VSD case with a bioabsorbable device, the Memosorb device. And from the panel, we have two specialists in this field in Brazil, good friends and colleagues, very experts, Dr. Raul Rossi from the Instituto de Cardiologia from Rio Grande do Sul, in the south of Brazil, and Dr. Juliana Neves from the Instituto Materno Infantil de Pernambuco, who are going to discuss this thrilling topic. So first of all, I want to just share my screen. I'm gonna show you about some features of 4 valves in these 4 years. Can you see my screen here?
Sim.
Okay. So, well, the main goal of 4 valves is to provide educational content on vascular cardiology intervention and research in the field, fostering learning and the dissemination of knowledge for the health sector in interventions in Brazil. So in these 4 years, we have so many special guests and international webinars. We had Professor Sievert, Professor Ross, Professor Qureshi, Professor Maizano, João Cavalcante from Minneapolis, and so many other guys, Professor Cribier, Chetri Hall. So we had a lot of people working with us, and we had more than 41 workshops, classes, and sessions in 2002. Maybe a reflection about the reflects from the pandemics. And 2003, 24 webinars and sessions and workshops. And we had also presential meetings in Brasilia 2022 with Professor Felix Kreidel from Germany and Jacqueline Rocha from Mainz, Professor Maizano he's now in Milan. In Rio 2023, we had Pablo Lamelas and Vanessa Monivas from Argentina and Spain. And our videos are becoming more and more seen in these years, so we are very happy with that. And we are thrilled to join the CSI family. And I want to thank you very much, Professor Shekil Qureshi, for that. And also our friends from Frankfurt, Professor Sievert, Inga Sievert, Artur Toledo, who's a Brazilian guy who gave us many support to join, collaborate with the CSI family. And I want to list here 5 reasons to attend CSI Frankfurt 2004 in collaboration with 4 valves. The first one, we have this top international faculty, so many brilliant people from all the parts of the world. I think it's one reason for the CSI to be so popular, because it's so open to many ideas and different environments. And 2, the live cases. I think it's brilliant part of the conference, because we have so many live cases during all the meeting. So we can see so many different aspects of the congenital and structural heart diseases. 3, and not less important, the interactive workshops that allow us to see the anatomic very we can work with the anatomic pieces. And also we had this special session last year in Orlando with the animal lab, that we could try different devices for pulmonar, for ASDs, and etc. And it was very useful. And 4th, the Cat Lab Cafe is a special way to join different ideas and people, when you can present your cases and you can make friends. That this is very important in this. I think it's a very important part in the meeting. And And the fifth reason is to enjoy Frankfurt in summer. So many options, gastronomy, this beautiful landscape. The city is so beautiful. And so that's why we all invite you to join CSI in June this year. So now I'm gonna present Professor Sievert from CVC Frankfurt. He's going to make a lecture about these bioabsorbable devices, the concept, and then he's gonna present us a PFO case. I wanna remind you, all the panel and all the guys here, that it's very relaxed webinar, so we can stop, we can ask, we can really interact in this in our webinar. Professor Sievert, please.
Yeah, thank you very much for the invitation. It's a great honor and pleasure for me to join you here for this webinar. I followed your presentation regarding the 5 reasons to come to CSI Frankfurt. That's all good, but obviously you should not take the 5th reason as a reason to come to Frankfurt. If so, then only after the CSI conference, just to make sure that the rooms stay full. So my topic is PFO closure with bioresorbable device. Oh, sorry, I have the wrong presentation here. Let me just change this one. Can you see it now? Are you still there? Can you hear me?
Yes, we are seeing you.
Yes, yes, we see. It's okay.
Okay, so my topic is bioresorbable devices for PFO and ASD closure. So, well, most of us think complications of device closure are extremely rare because it's such a mature, almost boring procedure. We do this since decades. The devices are so good and we are so good. But the reality is complications of device closure are more frequent than you think, because sometimes we are not that good and sometimes devices are not that good. Well, many complications are procedure related and could also happen if we use a device which is not resorbable, but several others can occur only because of the implanted device. Most importantly, most of us are not only afraid of complications, we also do not like piercing, even if it is internal piercing. So I think most of us, if not all of us, would prefer a treatment where nothing is left behind in our body. So why do we want to have bioresorbable devices? Because patients do not like piercing, as I mentioned before, and because metal frameworks may cause on the long term erosion, arrhythmia, thrombus formation, and aortic valve leaflet distortion. Also, we want to have bioresorbable devices to make future transeptal access possible, or easier at least, EP procedures, mitral valve interventions, and a closure. So when you have a metallic device in the atrial septum, then you still can do it. There are tricks to go around, but ideally you would have to like to have a device which has been resorbed at the time when you have to get access again to the left atrium. The configuration of the interatrial septum can change in the elderly, and there may be a risk of erosion decades after device implantation. And that's an observation we see in these days when we do TEE in PAVA candidates. Due to the elongation and enlargement of the aortic root, sometimes the interatrial septum becomes very small. So I'm wondering whether this has been larger in the past, in the youth of that patient. So we may ending up with complications decades after device implantation. And there are also concerns about nickel allergy, and we'll come back to all these points. Device erosion, as you all know, it's a rare but well-known complication of ASD closure, and it can also occur after PFO closure. And this is our first case we had 2 decades ago, cardiac perforation following transcatheter PFO closure. That was periprocedural, but we had another one, and that was not really periprocedural. That was very late erosion of an Amplatzer occluder device, resulting in cardiac tamponade after 15 years after the procedure. So then there are aortic valve issues. We don't see that very often, but ASDs can be, and PFOs are always close to the aortic root, and this may result in distortion of the aortic annulus and impact on the non-coronary cusp. And it has been described in the literature cases of aortic insufficiency and also of aortic to atrial fistula caused by metallic devices which are there forever. These are some data about that aortic valve regurgitation after atrial closure in ASD and PFO patients, and you can see the publication in 2008. Looking at the numbers, you can see it's a maybe quite significant problem which is underestimated. Then there are frame fractures. They are more frequent with outdated devices like the Astras and button device and Starflex, but still it happens also with newer devices like the Cardioform. Well, often we think that's not a big problem, but sometimes it may be. Now coming to nickel allergy, 8 to 10% of women and 1 to 2% of men are sensible to nickel, and all currently available closure devices contain nickel. And you may say, okay, I don't care. I have implanted many devices in that situation without any problems, but complications can occur in patients with nickel allergy in other fields. For example, if you implant a surgical valve in a patient with nickel allergy, they have a higher rate of paravalvular leaks. There's also a higher incidence of coronary stent restenosis in patients with nickel allergy. And there is more frequent a failure of nickel-containing orthopedic and dental prosthesis, like in hip replacement or dental prosthesis, where the prosthesis fails more often in those patients with nickel allergy. Patients with nickel allergy had more migraine and chest discomfort after ASD closure. And so this was observed by several studies. This is only one of them. And more recently, I think this was in 4 years ago, a case of nickel allergy in a patient who received a Gore Cardioform septal occluder. And you know this is a device which has very little amount of nickel, but this was a very convincing case. A 37-year-old female patient underwent implantation of a 30mm GSO device. She did well clinically post-procedure, but 1 week after the implantation, she began to develop generalized pruritus and diffuse urticaria over her torso and extremities, and given the extreme reaction to nickel on patch testing and persistent severe urticaria, despite allergen avoidance strategies, conservative therapy, and workup for other potential causes of her urticaria, the patient decided to undergo surgical explantation of the device and surgical closure of the defect. And then her symptoms and urticaria resolved within 7 days of explanation and had not recurred as for 1 month and 3 months follow-up. So this was, to me, a very convincing case that we may have underestimated the importance of nickel allergy in the past. Well, all currently available closure devices contain nickel. And interestingly, and I found this out only recently, according to the IFU, all of them are contraindicated in patients with nickel allergy. So yes, I have told my colleagues over decades, it doesn't matter, but if you implant a device which contains nickel in a nickel allergy patient and he suffers from something, you may get screwed. So endocarditis is another complication which may occur years after the procedure. It's very rare, but you can see here 5 years after device implantation. Well, if this would have been a resorbable device, obviously endocarditis would have been very unlikely or impossible. Thrombus formation, this is a case, and we have many cases like that with an Amplatzer occluder 4 years after implantation. And this can only happen because part of the devices was not covered. So this could be the source of thrombus formation. And obviously, if we have used a bioresorbable device, that could also not happen. All these late complications cannot occur with bioresorbable devices. So this is kind of a history of bioresorbable occluders. There was the immediate release patch from Sideris, Biostar, NMT Medical, Biotrack, NMT Medical, the Chinese Lantern, the CBSO, Dynova, Upsnow, Mello Medical, and Lepu. And there may be others I'm not aware of, but these are the most known devices. Well, some of them have disappeared. These concepts are not existing anymore. Let's go through the other ones. So the Carac bioresorbable septal occluder, CBSO, or the new name of that is Recept ASD occluder. It's made of PLGA framework and polyester patches. And obviously the polyester patches are not resorbable. So with this device, only the framework is resorbable. There are some platinum iridium markers for visibility to help during the implantation. It's suitable for ASDs and PFOs with very short tunnel, and there's currently a US study ongoing in ASD patients. This is one of the first cases with this device. A couple of years ago, I think this was 2014 or 2015, you can see the two umbrellas with the markers for visibility. They are brought together and then clicked together, and until the final stage before you remove the wire, the device is still retrievable. These are the initial results of the first-in-man study. We treated 9 patients with ASD, 6 patients with PFO. As you can see from these results, the results with ASDs had been better, and that is because PFOs almost always have some sort of tunnel, and due to the mechanics of this device, the PFOs are more difficult to close than ASDs. This is the Dynova PFO occluder system. So this is the opposite concept. In the CARC device, the framework was resorbable and the patch was permanent. Here is the other way around. So the framework is metallic and stays in place, and the covering of that is bioresorbable. But as you can see, there are big gaps in between the metallic frame structure. So this device, even if the metallic part remains, you still can do transeptal puncture with this device. You can see some preclinical results. This is after implantation, and then you can see after 2 months and after 4 months, and over time this heals in, and as I said earlier, the covering of the device is bioresorbable and then disappears. The AppSnow occluder was developed by LifeTech. Framework, membrane, suture, and locker are made of PLLA, which is completely resorbable. There are again platinum markers for visibility, requires up to 14 French sheath. ASD devices have a waist of up to 32 millimeters, and this one loses strength within 6 months and it becomes totally resorbed after 2 to 6 years. This shows you some preclinical results with this device after 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, and after 3 years, everything has disappeared. They have done a multi-center ASD trial with 151 patients. You can see the baseline characteristics here. So these had been ASD patients. Mean ASD size was 14. These are the results. Technical success was 99.3%. So only in 1 patient they were not able to implant the device, and that patient was converted to surgery because the device was misplaced in the left atrium. There were no other procedural complications related to the device and no significant residual shunts. Mellow Medical, they are working on all kinds of devices, ASD, PDA, VSD, and PFO devices. Here it's made out of PDO, or polydioxane. No, don't ask me what that really means. This disappears in a time period of about 12 months. There's polyester fabric again inside of this structure, so this is obviously not resorbable. And the clinical trial with PFO device is finished. These are the results with this device, 138 patients, device implantation successful in all of them. No serious adverse events, 2 patients with small pericardial effusion, which resolved, complete closure at 6 months in 97%, 1 patient with thrombus on the device, and this resolved spontaneously or under anticoagulation therapy. And finally, the Memosorb PFO device from Lepu. It's made of PDO. The frame is made of PDO. The membrane is made of PLA. Both resolve and eventually become carbon dioxide and water. It degrades within 12 months. The randomized trial is ongoing. You can see again the frame, and these are some animal results after 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, up to 3 years, and then the device completely disappears. These are data from the randomized trial comparing with the metallic occluder. And I think I don't have to go through these details here. This shows you another example with this Memosorb device. After 1 month and 3 months, TTE showed that the occluder had a complete structure, so a clear outline, no residual shunt. But at 6 months, the occluder outline and shape were reduced, no residual shunt. And at 12 months, TE showed that the occluder disappeared completely without a residual shunt. This was the first case we did in Frankfurt last year. This was, to my knowledge, the first case outside of China. and you can see the device in position. The patient will come for follow-up next week. So in summary, biodegradable devices have psychological advantages, no internal piercing, have objective advantages. Several new techniques are under development. Sometimes I think the future itself may be biodegradable. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Professor Sievert. Great presentation. I think we have space here for some questions from the panel or the participants. Professor Raul, would you like to start with a question for Professor Sievert?
Great presentation, Horst. I think that's a brave new world just ahead of us, and things will change with bioabsorbable devices, no doubt about it. I've recently had a patient whom I implanted, a professor of engineering. 20 years ago, I implanted a 4mm ASO device, and now he has AFib, and the device completely covered the intra-atrial septum. It was really great result for that time, but now we have a big problem, and we won't be able to go across that huge chunk of fibrous tissue and metal. So my question for you is that have you already have some data to show to us? Do you have cases, more than one at least, in Frankfurt?
No, we have done only one, but I showed you the data of the studies which have been done in China. So it's by the way remarkable that all these progress is now coming from China. So there's only one company which is actually from Switzerland, the first one, which is doing the trial now in the US, but everything else is coming from China. And they have, I showed you the data, they have done trials with several hundred patients, and the post-clinical use and post-study use in clinical practice with the Memosorb device, they have done now more than 1,000 cases.
That's great news. And I mean, I saw the data, and it's already in the literature. And I'm really surprised that 12 months you don't have anything in the intra-atrial septum. And probably in the future, you won't have atrial fib and all the bad things that comes with metal devices. Thank you.
I mean, to be fair, follow-up in all these trials is obviously not longer than a couple of years. So, but what we have seen so far, or what they have seen so far, looks pretty good.
Juliana or Max. Max, do you want to talk or?
No, ladies first.
Thank you, Max. It was really a good presentation, Dr. Sievert. Thank you. It's a completely new world for us. We are just learning how to deal with these materials or learning about these materials. We have old experience with some prostheses that had an absorption really too fast and do not allow time to the endothelialization of the hole. And some of us, I think, maybe need to put another device inside the residual hole in our experience. What do you think about the time of endothelialization? We know that there is a huge variability between people. So maybe one could endothelize in 3 months, but some devices we know have more than 1 year of endothelialization. What do you think about this period between the implantation and the absorbable completely of the structure?
That's really a very good question. And if you ask me what would be the ideal time until the device is resorbed, I would wish to have a time of maybe 3 years or 4 years. And that is because we know that some big ASD devices actually get not covered even after that time of period. My hope is, and again, we don't have that long follow-up now, my hope is that at least on one side of the device will be covered. So even if let's say the left atrial side is not covered by endothelium, then the right atrial side is hopefully covered. And that means we still can achieve complete occlusion. But what we are discussing here shows also how difficult it is to do these clinical trials. When we do a clinical trial with a new ASD closure device, we actually have an endpoint after 6 months or 1 year. But here with these bioresorbable devices, to be honest, we need a long-term follow-up of at least 5 years. So it's very difficult to conduct these trials.
One question, Professor Sievert, 2 questions, really. The first one is about the projection of time from animals to humans, because of the long time of animals and the evolution of animals. Have you project this time evolution, is directed or it's projected? How long, the period that you observe in animals, in models, if compared with human, is 1-to-1, or you project it longer?
It's definitely taking longer in humans compared to animals. When you remember the slides I showed you of the animal results, these devices in animals get covered within 3 months. But we know that it takes longer in humans, and that's why we designed the Carac device at that time, that it stays in there for 2 or 3 or 4 years. And some of the devices I showed you, they have a shorter time for resorption. So that's why I wanted to say a word of caution. We need more follow-up in these patients before we can really say this is a reliable technology. It's very promising, but we need more data for sure.
Yeah, I think about. And the other question is about the difference between having an absorbable device in ESD and PFO, because in PFO we have a lack of function. We have an entire primary and secondary septum that we have to bond because they are it's a functional problem. And in ESD we have an anatomic problem. That's the difference between the absorbable time, because if you can bond the septum primum to the secundum, we have a very great progress.
Yeah, I mean, there's in that regard is a big difference between PFO and ASDs. Imagine the device would resorb within 4 weeks. Then we would have a PFO again in PFO patients and an ASD again. But so the consequences in the ASD are obviously much larger and more important. Also, when you discuss potential embolization of parts of the device, which have not been occurred so far, to my knowledge, but theoretically that is a risk. I think this is lower in PFOs because it's easier for the body to cover a PFO device with tissue because there's tissue everywhere. Whereas in ASD devices, there are large parts of the area which there's no tissue contact with the device.
Pablo?
You're muted.
Your mic is...
Oh, sorry.
Yes.
No, yes. I have a question, a technical question. Maybe Professor Sievert and Dr. Zal would take some comment on this. This is not a metal device. It's a kind of plastic. I don't know what it's like when you get in your hands. So I think it's a little bit different of the memory that the nitinol wire has comparing to this one. I also saw a tether in the device. Can you just comment about the difference between the manipulation of this device when you are implanting that, and about the antiplatelet regimen, if it's longer, if we're concerning with thrombosis over the time, because when it's going, when the device is getting reabsorbed, maybe it's a potential source for thrombosis, late thrombosis. I don't know. I just question that I have in mind.
The first thing, I will show this in detail in my next presentation. You will see the difference between nitinol and this material here. And the second, we don't know. I mean, I don't think that the bioresorbable devices will be more thrombogenic than metallic devices. So currently our follow-up therapy is the same as with metallic devices. But again, this is something we need clinical data and follow-up. By the way, for metallic devices, nobody did these studies. So we don't know what the optimal medical therapy after ASD closure is. We just prescribed aspirin for 6 months, because that was what we always do as cardiologists, but we don't have any data whether this is better than anticoagulation or better than DAPT, and how long it's really required. We don't know that.
Maybe Dr. Zhao would comment on that, because I have seen so many publications in the social media, in LinkedIn, for many cases in China that are being made in post-clinical. This is cleared in China, right? How are you managing these patients post-implantation?
Currently, we still manage the patients as we do in the metal occluder. We give the aspirin for 6 months, and then we stop the aspirin and check the patients if they have the symptoms of the thrombones.
Okay, so it's only aspirin, no clopidogrel at all. For adults, for
yes, for PFO cases, we give the clospixazole.
Okay.
So that comes from the early observation, actually from our study in 1,000 patients almost 20 years ago, where we realized that PFO patients had a little bit higher incidence of thrombus formation on the device than ASD. So then we thought, okay, we have to change something, and we added Plavix to aspirin in PFO patients. But that's not really science. It's just like, okay, we did something. We should have done the next trial and randomize, but we didn't do it.
So there's something of not. No, sorry.
Yeah,
go ahead.
You have to observe one topic each time, because you are observing difference of material. Then you are going to observe it on behavior or the therapeutic differences, but not at the same time. We have to observe one point, then the other point.
Exactly.
Stronger.
Exactly. So you will probably need a 3 or 4 arm trial, because it may be that anticoagulation is better. It may be that aspirin is enough. It may be that you need DAPT, and it may be that you don't need anything. So this will be a very complex trial. I don't want to do that. That's too boring for me. I would like to read the results, but I'm not going a randomized trial with 4,000 patients.
Okay, so for a matter of time, 2 quick questions. I know you raised your hands, Juliana and Dr. Raul. Very quick questions, please, because we have to move on.
2 technical questions, Horst. Closing PFOs is easy, boring, blah, 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 blah. Are there any differences in closing PFOs with Memosorb or whatever, those PP LA device?
Yeah, there are a lot of little differences. I will show this in my next presentation.
Right. And second
Juliana.
question, very quick. Second question, please. As far as you know, do you have knowledge of a transeptal puncture after one of those devices?
The only personal experience really is with the De Nova device in animals. I'm not aware that in humans this has been done with any of the other devices. So far, not. And that is because, as I said earlier, we interventionists overestimate a little bit the need for additional access. If you have an ASD or PFO patient, it's not that frequent that they need another procedure. They may need it after 20 years, like in your case, but not so early.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, Max, I think we have to move on because of time. Please, Professor, your next presentation.
Yeah, I have several questions for the audience here also, but I'm going to ask after that.
Okay, so this is a case we did, I think it's September, case number 1. She had a silent stroke diagnosed by MRI in 2021, severe nickel allergy. Then we tried suture closure of that PFO in July 22, which is actually a good technique, but sometimes it fails. She had recurrent TVT, right femoral vein was occluded, chronic venous insufficiency with multiple vein surgeries. She had suffering from severe lymphedema, and liposuction is planned. She's really suffering a lot from that. So liposuction is a procedure where there is a risk of paradoxical emboli. So the surgeon said he will not do this before we close this PFO. So this shows you the PFO after the unsuccessful suture closure. You can see there's a big residual shunt. You can see actually at the initial phase of this video loop, there is the suture. I don't know whether you can see my arrow here, but well, anyway, yes. So here's the, it's taking too long. Here's the suture, but I will skip this here. So clinical indications and decision-making in this patient, PFO closure is indicated due to the prior stroke without any other potential cause. PFO closure has to be done before the planned liposuction. Patient is very concerned about her nickel allergy. And in fact, as I mentioned earlier, according to the IFU, all the PFO closure devices are contraindicated. And the strategy was to close the PFO with the new resorbable PFO closure device from Lepu, the Memosorb. We did this as a compassionate use under TE guidance only, together with Dr. Pan. And you may know that Dr. Pan is doing all his procedures under echo guidance. So it was, for us, it was a first in Frankfurt case with resorbable device from Lepu, and well, one of the first cases without fluoro.
The audio is not coming. Can you start?
Oh,
we don't have the audio from the presentation, from the case.
So
but if
can you hear it now?
No, not really. But you can.
Okay, so then I will speak over it. So this is Dr. Pan from Fubai Hospital, and he's doing all his procedures under echo guidance. Now he is explaining the device, and you can see it's reformable, reshapeable like the metallic devices, but it's not so much constrained. So it does not go back to the initial position as a metallic device would do. So you have to add an additional feature in order to bring the two umbrellas closer together. And that is by the suture. So you pull on the suture, and then you can see that the two parts of the device are coming closer together or closer to the septum.
Is this a PFO device, right?
This is a PFO device.
It looks different, a little bit different from the ordinary ones with the metal frame.
Yeah, it's a little bit thicker, exactly. And the physical properties are different. So now I'm discussing here that Dr. Pan is doing everything under echo guidance and without fluoro. So we can skip this here and go to the next. Now we are looking at the echo. So you see this, now you can see the suture. These little two dots are the suture, which has not been effective. And that is because the suture, for some reason, grabbed only the septum secundum, but the septum primum is not grabbed anymore. I mean, it was grabbed initially, but then it came loose. And that's why this patient now has a residual shunt. So he measured a distance here of about 2 millimeters between septum primum and septum secundum. You can see that the wire is already across the defect. And now you can see that the opening is going up to 4 or 5 millimeters. The tunnel length is about 5 millimeters. Now insert a sheath into the groin, 9 sheath. And Dr. Pan is explaining the wire he has developed. That has nothing to do with the bioresorbable device. This is because we do this without fluoro. So this little basket at the end makes the tip of the wire visible under echo. You can always see the wire under echo, but the tip of the wire is hard to identify. But with this little flat basket, it's much easier to see this under echo guidance. Let's just forward this here a little bit.
This
Okay.
is the only reason to use it. It's because he does all the procedures under echo, right?
Yeah, exactly. So that has nothing to do with the resolvable
Device
device.
itself.
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
So now let's continue here. In this case, I already had crossed the PFO, so we didn't use the wire. Then we exchange for the sheath. So we had to load the device first in the loading system. So these are details which are a little bit more complicated, obviously, than with the regular Amplatzer or Occlutech device, because you have to take care of that suture. Because, as I mentioned earlier, when the device is in place, it's not that, does not have the memory of a nitinol device. So you need that suture in place in order to bring the two umbrellas close together before you fix them and before you can release them. So this is the loading cable, which is actually quite similar like a loading cable for the other devices. But then the suture has to go into this loading device. It's like a monorail technique. And then you can, there's a little screw made of resorbable plastic on the right atrial disc. And then you can screw it in there. So that's now like with the Amplatzer device or any other device. And then
the profile of the device is bigger for these reasons. I see a 14 French.
Exactly.
Loader.
So we need a, it's thicker, so we need a 14 French sheath. Now, let me just advance this here. It's nothing important.
We have also here option that has 14 sheet size in the biggest devices.
Yeah, it's like for ASD, sometimes we use these bigger devices. Or for some reason, we had to recross here. So we now used his wire to cross. Normally this goes automatic, but I have to skip it because otherwise you're just, oops. Okay, so we have recrossed the defect. Obviously, I lost position. So now we are measuring the distance from the heart to the from the heart to the groin in order so we know, because we are not using fluoro, so we know how far we have to introduce the sheath into the body until we reach the right atrium. You see the wire is still across the defect. So the top of the wire now is in the, I think in the pulmonary vein. Okay, so wire in the pulmonary vein over there. There it is. Okay. So he does this all the time. For me, it's rare that we use echo only in pregnant patients. So he's doing everything. There are some rumors why he's doing that. I was told that initially, he's a surgeon. Initially, he had not access to the cath lab, so he started doing structural interventions and did this in the OR. And he figured out how to do this without fluoro. But there are obviously other good reasons not to use fluoro. Now this is the 14 French sheath which goes in.
I have seen some cases from Dr. Pan at CSI, and he measures make some measurements of the patients with his hands, right?
Yeah, that's what we did here. That's what we did actually. Yeah, we already saw the tip of the sheath in the right atrium, and then we measured the length of the catheter which is sticking out of the groin. So we remembered that, and then we know how far we should introduce the sheath so that we end up in the same position, just at the level of the interatrial septum.
The other reason that he told in his lecture at CSI was that in China there are many centers in the countryside that don't have fluoro at all, and they can.
Good point.
So he can.
Yeah. He is actually doing this worldwide now. So he was able to engage with the United Nations, and he has started a program with their support. And he told me that they have now 6 trucks with echo machines, and he will send these trucks over countries like Africa and other areas where there's no X-ray available. And then they go there and close ASDs and VSDs and PDAs in patients there without using fluoro. So that's a very interesting concept, challenging, but very interesting, of course.
Yeah.
You see the sheath is now across the septum. I don't know whether it's really used in China, because in China people can travel very well. So it's different from Central Africa, of course. Here you can see the left atrial disc is now exposed. And then the implantation is quite similar. Here the right atrial disc is exposed. So that part of the procedure is very similar to what we do with Amplatzer devices or Occluder devices. You can see that the profile is thicker than with the ASD device, with the metallic devices, which is not a problem because it's resorbable anyway.
I see you are pushing the cable and pulling the wire, right?
Exactly. That is because the device does not behave like new. It has not that memory. So you have to help a little bit by pulling on the suture and pushing on the delivery cable and the sheath.
The material, absorbable material, is well observed at the radioscopy. At the echo is very well, but at the radioscopy can you see it well or not?
It's on fluoro. We didn't use fluoro, so I don't know. I know that there are, I think, 3 or 4 markers of, I think it's platinum or iridium, but they don't help much because visibility on fluoro is very bad. So this is really an echo-guided procedure.
Dr. Zhao, are you still with us?
Yes.
Do you use fluoroscopy at Full Eye Hospital, or only ultrasound for doing this?
Yeah, only echo for this.
So this was the correct answer. Imagine he would say, occasionally we use fluoro. I think Dr. Pan would get a heart attack and fire him.
Yes, that's true.
Thank you, Professor. And for all the other procedures in China, you use the echo only for VSDs as well?
Yes, the VSD device is only visible under echo. There's no markers.
Okay, so that's very nice demonstration. I wanna ask you if you have some questions. It's open for questions. Please, Juliana, do you have any technical questions or considerations?
Yes, I agree with the Professor Sievert. The device is really more stiff than thick than the device we are used to use. My question is, you needed to, I didn't understand it so much. You needed to make the discs together during that maneuver. You push the suture line and push pull the cable to make the discs together, and maybe to mold the thicker of the discs of the device.
Well, it will not make the device slimmer, but it will bring the 2 parts together. When you have a metallic device and you pull it, then it goes back to the original shape. This one goes also back, but not completely. So you have to help a little bit more. And this is done, as you said, and as I showed you, by putting on the suture and advancing the delivery cable.
It's like
Yes.
the premier, the
seem to
premier
have-
devices
Sorry.
that several years
Max,
ago.
Max, your sound is not clear. Can you
No,
check
my voice was not clear. The
Yes,
premier,
of course.
the premier device has that idea to pull the line to develop to place the device in the exact position. Then it was discontinued by the industry, that device. But has that?
And I don't
that
know
idea.
why. I really don't know why it was discontinued. It's nonsense because it was a very nice device. Do you know that? Why?
It was probably the best PFO device we ever had. It was more extreme because the Premier device had no recoil at all. The two umbrellas were completely separate, but the technique was the same, pulling on the suture and advancing the guide in that case. So the technique was the same, but there was no memory at all. Whereas this device has some memory. So when you stretch it and release it, it goes back, not completely, but almost to the ideal position. And then only for the last part, you have to do this pulling and pushing maneuver.
How about the stiffness of the device in cases of aneurysm of the septum, when you have a very large movement of the tissue? It has the same or similar behavior about the metallic ones?
Very
You can
similar. So
control
I think the stiffness, which is different from memory, the stiffness is, I didn't have the two devices side by side in my hand, but the stiffness is comparable. And maybe Dr. Tsao can comment on that because he has seen many more devices. So I think the stiffness is comparable. It will be able to cover aneurysms of the septum as what we have seen with the metallic devices.
Yes,
You have much
Dr.
more
Horst,
control over
the stiffness is almost the same.
Okay,
So-
that's important to bound the one line to another. The septum primum to septum secundum. That is the aim or the goal of the device.
And Horst, do they come in different sizes? And the second question, what is the locking mechanism for the tether?
At that time, we had only one size available, but maybe they have more sizes now. And that's a good question. Dr. Tsao, can you remind me, how was the locking mechanism? I've forgotten that.
There's a knot.
There's a knot. Okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
there's a knot. I
Okay.
will show it in my presentation
Yeah.
later.
Okay. Good.
Great, thank you.
That
Okay,
size
so
is 18 or 24 device, PFO device.
I think the diameter was 24 of that PFO device.
Yeah, the size looks like that. 20, something like
Oh, you have
24.
very good eyes. I mean, this is difficult to see from the distance. So you can measure it by millimeter exactly. That's perfect.
So Professor Sievert, one question for you. I have seen, I was in Frankfurt in 2022, and I remember that you said that you believe that the future is reabsorbable at that time. Do you still believe that? And do you think that the future has arrived, or it's not so here? The future is just
In the
2
future.
years from now.
That's a philosophical question, right? So because
Yeah.
the future will never be here, because if it is here, then it is present. So the future is always ahead. But I think in general, I mean, we all want to avoid surgery because we want to have integrity of our body. And we also do not want to end up as a garbage where at the end we have a pacemaker, we have a metallic valve, we have an ASD occluder. I think we all agree that it would be much more nicer if we develop treatment methods where nothing is left behind. This is only for psychological reason. but the entire life is psychological. So I think it's a very important point, and we should focus on that. And
Okay,
when it
thank you.
comes to my quote, the future is resorbable, that has a political dimension in the current world.
Yeah, so philosophic. So I think we have to move.
We have one question of the audience.
Oh, question. Okay.
They're asking if it's routinely used or it's still waiting for approval of the government authorities.
It is a very interesting question. It is approved in China. Since approval, which is 4 months ago, they have already used 1,000 devices. So I'm afraid that the company may say, okay, why should we bother with European approval and FDA approval? Why not just to sell the device in China? And we have a big market there. So that is actually a risk here. And so when we use the device, we have to apply for compassionate use. And usually the German authorities are very arrogant. So after the 3rd or 4th case, they say, okay, wait a minute. Now the company has to apply for a regular trial. And I said them, well, it may be that the company is not interested in a trial in Germany or Europe anymore. And they were shocked. So it's interesting how this will develop in the future.
I remember when in 1980, and 2028, when the first time in CSI, when the people from China showed their numbers about the BSC procedures, about 5,000 procedures. All the people say, how many? 5,000? No, it's not possible. There are really numbers, and there are really numbers of that experience in China. That I think was the first time that the China people in showing it in the CSI, and always we started very impressive and surprised about the numbers of the procedures in China. That's amazing, and congrats.
And yeah, that's quite a good question. And even with these new European market regulations for medical devices, I think these devices fall in that orphan device category, which is not regulated so far. Am I right?
No, they are. Every device in Europe is regulated. So there's whatever it is, it needs CE mark. And now, due to the new regulations, it's so difficult to get approval, and it will take many years, and it's extremely costly. So that's why there's a risk that all the progress is moving away from Europe and from the United States. They have become easier there, but it's still much more difficult than in other areas. Maybe in your area, you will get approval faster than we in Europe.
Probably not. Yeah. It's really hard here too.
Oh, Pablo, let's go and move on to the next because we're on time.
Yeah. So I wanna, well, first of all, I wanna thank you, Professor Sievert, for his presentations. It was really a pleasure to hear you, to see you, and I wanna thank you because you are in Japan right now. It's 11 p.m. So we recognize your effort to be here. And what about the future? The future is here, and it's present because we are in Brazil talking to a German doctor in Japan, and we are receiving a good friend from China. And so with brilliant friends from different parts from Brazil, we are a part of 3,000 kilometers from Juliana, 2,000 kilometers from Raul, and 1,000 kilometers from Max. So I think it's brilliant. This is the beauty of the internet, and this is thrilling for me. So I wanna
this is the goal of the 4 valves, the spirit of the 4 valves.
Yes. So it's a pleasure to receive Dr. Zhao Guangzi from Fuai Hospital, who's gonna show us a VSD closure case with the Memosorb device. Please, Dr. Zhao. Can you share your screen?
Pablo. Okay. Can you see my presentation now?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for having me here. I'm here on behalf of Dr. Pan Xiangbing, and part of his team member. I will show two cases of different approach to close the VSD with Lacoste biodegradable device. Before showing the case, I want to show the difference between bioabsorbable and a metal occluder. The most important difference is device formation, as we can see in Dr. Horst's slide. The biodegradable material is not as elastic as metal. Can you see my notes? As we see in this picture, the disc of the biodegradable occluder is in an irregular shape in its natural state. So we need manually change the device into an H shape. That's here. When we implant the device in our patients, as we can see, there's a thread that is connected to a knot. This is the thread, this is the knot. Naturally, the knot is inside the disc, which is between the two discs, is inside the occluder. When we pull the thread with force, the knot will move from the inside of the occluder to the outside. And the diameter of the knot is bigger than the revealed point. So once the knot is outside the occluder, it cannot go inside. That's how we made the device formed and locked in the H shape. So there's two ways to implant the device, through the femoral vein or directly through the right ventricle. We use a long cable with inner thread and a alligator forceps, something like a biopsy forceps to perform the transthorax access. Regarding the choice of the two approach, we mainly use the transfemoral approach for adults and children weighted more than 10 kilograms. For children less than 10 kilo, the diameter of the blood vessel is smaller, so we will use the transthorax approach. This is a choice. This is a demonstration of a device and a delivery system. We can see there's four types. We can see there's four types of occluder with different height, which are suitable for memories and muscular VSD for patients with different age. And also the size of the occluder is from 4 millimeters to 16 millimeters. The corresponding size of the VSD then can be sealed, range from 3 millimeters to about 1 centimeters. When we choose the size of the occluder for memories defect, we usually added 2 to 3 millimeters to the defect diameter, and for muscular defect, we usually multiply the diameter by 2. For example, a 5 millimeter memories ventricle septum, we will choose a 7 to 8 millimeter occluder, and for 8 millimeter muscular memory septum, we will choose a 14 to 16 occluder. Before starting the operation, we need to test the locking device of the occluder, which is the knot, to see whether this knot can be pulled out accurately and lock the occluder into H shape. During the loading process, there are 2 points. The first is to avoid misalignment of the occluder and the metal cable, which will cause the occluder unable to release. The second is to prevent the thread entangled with the cable, which may fail the shaping process, and we won't be able to withdraw the thread. Okay, the first case is a 10-month baby with a 4 millimeter memories VSD. For these patients, we choose transthorax access. After general anesthesia, we performed a 2 to 3 centimeter incision in the lower septum, and we select a place in the right ventricle that is alignment with the VSD, and there's no coronary arteries, as a puncture site. Then we use a 500 Prolin suture to seal a purse string at the puncture site. Also, we will seal an extra absorbable suture on the occluder to act as a safety rope. Since the occluder is not visible on the floor, in case of the occluder falling off, the safety rope will prevent the occluder from moving with the blood flow and causing embolism. To ensure good direction of the guide wire, we use a 16G trocar for puncture. The trocar is made of a soft plastic on the outside and the puncture needle in the inside, so the outside of the trocar can be retained after the needle is withdrawn. After passing the VSD, we will withdraw the trocar and insert the delivery system. Our choice is a 6mm occluder with a 7 French delivery system. When loading the occluder, we will manually squeeze the disc of the occluder to make it easy to enter the loading phase, while keeping the safety rope and the forming thread in an even state to avoid alignment, to avoid entanglement. The tip for releasing the disc of occluder is that after the left disc is released, we can gently pull the forming thread to shape the left disc, and then pull it close to the ventricle septum before releasing the right disc. This will prevent the left disc being pulled from the left ventricle to the right ventricle, which means the device might drop with force. After the operation, we will secure the safety rope to the surface of the right ventricle. The second case is a 32 mile with a VSD of 6mm. For this patient, we choose transfemoral access. Sorry for the noise. First, femoral artery, left ventricle, VSD, right ventricle, right atrium, and femoral vein channel was established. Then we insert the delivery trace from the femoral vein to pass VSD. Unlike the transthorax approach, there will be some resistance when passing the delivery system through VSD during percutaneous implantation, so this step may take some time. The loading process is the same as we mentioned above. Sorry. It is important to clearly see the correct formation of the occluder under echo, so TE should be used when TTE image is poor. It only took 2 to 3 minutes for TE to confirm the shape of the occluder and the effect of closure. So in summary, it's a choice approach, choice of occluder, and how to deal with unclear TE images. As we mentioned, we only use transthorax approach for babies with smaller weights, and we would choose an occluder with a waist diameter of 2 to 3 millimeters larger than the VSD, and for members VSD, and for muscular, we would multiply the diameter by 2. To the part of how to deal with unclear TT image, normally we will elevate the patient's right side and make the patient lean forward to the left side, would solve the problem in most cases. If still cannot be improved, it is recommended to use ICE or TE to guide the operation. Thank you.
Well, it's great presentation. We are really shocked by this so fast approach and so easy, I must say, Nestor's, how you do this, as you are masters of the VSD closure. I have questions from the panel. I think you have a lot of questions.
Okay.
Max.
And just a comment about the experience we have had with Juliana several years ago. Experience to make VSD closure procedures from research. We perform nine procedures in the same day and 16 in 2 days. Remember, Juliana? Several times. And we use the TTE control in that time in the pediatric and just in pediatric community. It's well done. We can perform with a good quality of image on the ventricular septal defect with aneurysm and exactly imaging image that you have shown now. Congrats about your case. I have just one question about the performance of the procedure, just ESG, PFO, and VSD. How about in case of that the device has embolization during the procedure or after that? You can use it, you can recharge and use it again, or if you started to deliver, you cannot use it again. You cannot replace it. You have to use another device.
The occluder can be pulled back into the sheath if you want. You can change another size if it's not the right size. If it's smaller, you can change a bigger one. It's okay.
Yeah, and then, but in case you can use the same device if you have a problem, not for the maneuver, not exactly during the wrong size.
I think he's asking if it's repositionable. If you can reposition the same device. If you're not satisfied with the position, you can retract and try again with the same one.
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Oh, that's a very important point.
Juliana, you have raised your hands, and also Raul. Please.
Yes. Thank you, Dr. Zhao, for your presentation and show your experience to us. As pediatrician, I'm pediatric. It's really, I think the most benefit of this bioabsorbable devices is for children, for sure, because we are putting now metal devices in organs that is growing up. And I know that we have almost 30 years of device implanted, but it's not easy to imagine a baby with 2-3 years with a metal device since during 70, 80 years, as Dr. Sievert has commented, the aortic root will change in the years, the body is growing. And you in China are using these devices in very small babies. So what is your experience in these babies? If the muscular septum works such as the atrial septum, I think it's a muscular device in the muscular VSD, maybe this type of endothelization, I don't know if it works like the atrial septum or the perimembranous septum. So this is the question. How this absorbable device works in the muscular septum in a VSD, or it looks like it will not have muscular structure in place of this device, of course.
As a matter of fact, we don't have much experience with the device in muscular VSD. For most of the cases we perform, it's for the memories VSD.
Okay. Okay.
Professor Raul.
First of all, I'd like to apologize to Juliana because I cut her off in the last session questions. But sorry, Juliana. The first question is, do you ever have an embolized device, and how hard is to get it back? Because they don't show at the X-ray, right? I know you use echo, but if you have, say, a device embolized to the aorta, how do you retrieve it? And the second question would be, complete AV block is not a problem anymore after the new softer devices that came from China. Do you have any idea of the incidence of AV block after those bioabsorbable devices?
Okay, thank you for our question. The first one, we currently don't have embolism of the VSD occluder right now, but in one case we have a dropped of a ASD device. And since the device is bigger, it's easy for the echo to detect it in the vascular. So we perform the open surgeries to take it out.
Right.
Okay.
And for the second question,
AV block.
Sorry.
AV block.
Yes, AV
AV
block.
block.
For AV block in our center, in National Center, we haven't met patients with AV block. But as you know, this device is still very expensive in China. Not every patient can afford this one, so still it's not in large scale implantation.
Okay. But you mean these devices are cleared to use in China? If you have a case and you want to use it, the patient can afford, you can use it. It's cleared, right?
Yes, it's approved by China's government.
Okay, that's right.
Just the price.
I have one question about the device itself. For VSD, you have only one is symmetric. You don't have eccentric, or it's only for perimembranous VSDs with some space from the aorta, right?
Yes.
The eccentric is not usable in this context, right?
Yes.
Okay.
We only perform this case if the VSD has a 2 to 3 millimeters distance from the aortic valve.
Okay, good. Okay.
So I have to apologize. I have to leave us. One question here.
Any question from the audience, Max?
Yeah, I have several. I have one for Cesar Medeiros, that is an hemodynamicist. He commented about the allergy, the advantage of the allergy, but the importance of, he commented about the yodel also allergy, that is a problem in the hemodynamics during the procedure, but it's much important. But he said about the advantage of the septal puncture as a advantage using absorbable in the future. That's what just a comment of Cesar. I have just one question about the relationship between the size of the device and the problem of the future of perforation that Dr. Sievert commented about late until 15 years late after the procedure has an aorta perforation due to enlargement of the aorta. That's a problem that you are going to see in the near future, about 20 years experience that we are going to have in Brazil. Doesn't it, Raul? Do you remember what is the oldest case that you have?
My first implant was 1998, an ASD.
That's more than 25 years, 20 years.
Yeah, and we are about 2,000 cases now, and which is in China is a weekend. But
yes,
that case that I comment was the first case that 21 years ago, that I implanted a 4 millimeter device, a 40 millimeter device. It was just perfect. But now we have a big problem.
Yeah, the problem is about the perforation or that kind of complication is, I think, is related to the size of the device. When you use a biggest device, especially in that case, we're related to a 35 millimeter disc, exactly in the right side of the device, where perforate the aorta using a Valsalva maneuver or making an effort to push a height, a very wide, I think it was a car or something like that, that we have a great isometric effort, and then make the right side of the device perforate the aorta, and a 35 millimeters device. That is the important relation between the rates of perforation and the size of the device. This is a problem or a thinking problem, Dr. Zul, for these devices, because they are not big devices, they are small devices. I think can you hear me? Pablo? Pablo?
Oi, Max. Hi.
Yeah.
Okay, I can hear you.
No, I asked about the rates of perforation, about related to the size of the device. If I think it's a point that it's considered for the development of these new devices.
Yes, we have a lot to learn. I was very concerned with what Juliana has said about putting these devices in small children or even in teenagers, because they have a lot of way to go in the future. So we have to be very worried, very concerned, and talk to the families to be very clear about the future complications that we could have. And in this setting, I think these bioabsorbable devices are maybe a good solution in the long run. So we have to see the results in the long run to see how it's coming to the future, right? Dr. Raul raised the hands. I think we have more 5 minutes, so one question for everyone, and we can wrap up and finish this meeting. Okay, Dr. Raul, please
make a comment. Just a quick comment. I understand that we are always looking for progress and the way ahead and new things and new devices, new way to do old things. But and I think bioabsorbable devices are just great. I really hope that the progress is going to be as fast as it can for us to have access to those new devices and new improved devices as well, because this is the first version. But just a word of caution, and I'm trying to make everybody at ease, because people who are watching us, please don't think that just because you don't have bioabsorbable devices, we can't do anything and our patients are at risk. Erosions are very concerning, but they are very rare problem, and especially if we are very careful in choosing the right size of metal devices. So your patients are really in the safe side of these things, and we all do closures with the utmost care to diminish the risk of erosion. So we can do it, and probably we'll do it better with bioabsorbable devices. Thank you, and thank you very much for the invitation.
No, it's our pleasure. Always your comments are so wise and ponderate. Juliana, please, can you make your comments?
Yes, I agree with you both. I think we are seeing maybe our future, but now we are doing this type of procedures with a lot of security, and we are able to treat these patients in a good manner and safety with our available devices. We are, of course, guys, our specialty asks us to do, looking to the future. But it's now, maybe this is possible now in China, but now we are waiting for the research, for the results of this new device to see what happened with patients in the long run. And I think we are doing quite well, and we need to see what happened with these bioabsorbable devices. We had some experience with stents, bioabsorbable stents, and we were very excited in the beginning, and we had some fall downs and in what we believed it would be good. I hope this do not have with this to occur with these devices, because I'm confident that it will be more easier to treat children with bioabsorbable devices if we need to be peaceful that you would not have metal inside the heart for the whole life. But it's the future, and we are anxious to see what happens next. Thank you for the invitation. Thank you, Dr. Zhao, for your presence here with us.
Thank you, Juliana. It's always a pleasure to be with you and to learn from you. Dr. Zhao, your comments. First of all, I want to thank you very much, because it's a pleasure to have a Chinese colleague here with us in Brazil, apart from 11-hour difference, time difference. So thank you for being here, for your case presentations, and we hope you to see you in the future again. Can you comment on this cooperation with China and Brazil?
Thank you, Dr. Pablo. It's a pleasure. As we know, China has many new devices for the absorbable device, ASD, PFO. The case is rocketing in the PFO cases. Last year in China, we performed like 60,000 cases of PFO closure, and but for VSD cases, it's not that much. In Fuai Hospital, we only perform like less than 100 cases for a year. So VSD is still a much to debate or to discuss the questions.
Okay, thank you very much for your participation. Max, you want to wrap up and end this webinar?
Yes, thank you very much, all of you, for your participation. Dr. Zhao, Juliana, Raul, Dr. Sievert that has gone. We have a new technology, and a new technology does not independently, does not negative the past technology that you have done until now. I think it's another tool in our toolbox to treat our patient. We have a specialist problems, then we have a special devices and a special solution for that problem. We have done now with what we have done, it's still working, and we are still doing that. We are going to have a new tool in our toolbox, and I would like to invite you. Please look at show the picture, okay, on that. Our next meeting, the last, we are going to be in October at Maceió with our meeting, the 4-hour meeting, and all of you are invited to be at Maceió in October 24 to 26. With all this kind of discussion, we're looking for just a shared experience and knowledge with our colleagues. That's the aim of the 4 rounds. Thank you very much for your attention, your kind time. And I would like, Pablo, I would let you the last speech. I just say thank you for all of you. Looking for the 1 year and much more 1 year, completed the 4 rounds work. Thank you very much, Pablo. The final words are yours.
Well, I just want to thank you, all of you who were with us in a Saturday morning. A part of it, you are all friends and very considerate ones for me. We are always learning together, and that's the principal, the main goal of these webinars and these meetings. I want to thank you. I want to thank Gustavo, Paulo, Edgar, Max, and Márcio, and the guy from the techs, Pedro and Tuca, and all the guys who were with us this morning. And I hope to see you in next sections. It will be a real pleasure. Thank you, and see you in the future. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.